We have joining us now Prime Minister of St. Kitts and Nevis, the Honorable Dr. Terence Drew. He is no stranger to the studio of Freedom FM. He's here quite often. So welcome back, Prime Minister.
Thank you very much, Jamie. I have been on with you a number of times and also with EK. I've also been in the studios of Win FM. As I said before, it's critically important that I make myself available to the press and to the public. I would say just yesterday we had first ever national consultation on the economy with the youth of St. Kitts and Nevis, along with other stakeholders. But I wanted to speak directly with the youth and to hear more than I speak. And I think that that really was a paradigm shift so that they can be part and parcel of the budgetary discussion, the economy, because the economy, of course, would interest them, but their voices, I thought, should be amplified. And so I brought them there. And the youth were able to ask any question they wanted to ask.
Fantastic.
And they asked some very poignant questions, open questions, questions, of course, that I think were very relevant. And I want to thank the youth for coming out to that first ever budget consultation with the youth. And we look forward to doing more like these. We'll continue to find ways to engage our people so that we can have those open conversations. And the ideas that were brought forward, those, of course, would be incorporated in what we do going forward. So I want to thank the youth for coming out yesterday as well. Um, I also want to update about the golf competition that recently took place at our golf course. I want to thank Mr. Zeke Percival, the president who organized that. We had persons from throughout the OECS who came and participated. St. Kitts performed well. I think it was won by St. Lucia. And I, was my office participated in making sure that it happened, and I was there to, hand over the prizes to those who were the winners in various categories. And so I want to say to the golfing community here in St. Kitts and Nevis that I support that as part of our outlet of sports and creative economy. And bringing people here to play golf, of course, add to our economic development in terms they have to take a flight, they have to pay taxes, they have to sleep somewhere, they have to eat somewhere. So the economic spin-off, we know, is definitely a positive one. I also want to say, as I speak about persons coming to St. Kitts, to really congratulate Minister Marsha Henderson and her team who have been working tirelessly hard to ensure that we increase airlift to St. Kitts and Nevis. And just to let our people know that there will be, for this tourist season, an increase in airlift to our country by 14%. We have the new JetBlue that will be coming in. The inaugural flight is on the 2nd of November. In addition to that, we also have expanded service from Air Canada, United, American Airlines, and then we have the regional airlines that will also be that are also here and will be increasing as well. So a significant increase from 1 year to the next of 14% is not anything to laugh at. That means more people will be coming in, more people will be coming to stay at our hotels, and that has a tremendous economic spin-off. And so thus far, that has been going well. It is all part of our strategy to grow tourism, to strengthen tourism, to make it sustainable, as well as we seek to develop a sustainable island state, which I'll get into very soon. Um, and so we are expecting that. With respect to cruise tourism, we are not back at the 2019 level, but we are much more than last year. Last year we had just over between 500, between a half a million and 600,000. This year we are expecting between 800,000 and 900,000. So
Okay.
that's a significant increase. So we are expecting increases both in air travel and also in cruise visitors. And so we expect to have a more robust tourist season this year than we did last year. And let me remind the public what hampered us last year and what is still hampering us is the fact that last year we took too long to open the country, in the sense that we still had restrictions on up to when elections were held, which was in August. That, of course, had a tremendous impact on the number of persons who would have chosen St. Kitts as a destination. It means that people would book months in advance. And when St. Kitts had all these restrictions, and you had other Caribbean countries without the restrictions, people chose to go to these other countries. And that hurt us. We had the slowest recovery in the tourism sector. As a matter of fact, it had countries that surpassed the 2019 levels. Because imagine St. Kitts was not an option for hundreds of thousands of people. So they chose to go to different countries. And those people went there. Not all of them have come back, because they say, well, we went here, and it's easier for them maybe to go back there, or the relationships that were developed. However, the minister and her team, all of us worked hard to make sure that we would have an increase over last year and the year before. However, we still have to continue to grow. I know the minister recently went to a CTA meeting, and she is making a presentation, right? And I expect, of course, that there would be improvement in terms of our visitor profile here into St. Kitts and Nevis. And so, with that said, we expect a more robust tourist season than the one we had last year.
Okay.
And we are expecting, of course, to recover by 2024. One of the things that we have been discussing, Jamie, as I speak about this, is the sustainable island state. The sustainable island state is the overall vision of the government. St. Kitts and Nevis, at this present moment, as a small island developing state, is dealing with a number of crises. We are in a polycrisis type of situation. You had one war, now you have two. Supply chains are affected. Inflation, the cost of energy, meaning fuel, climate change, post-COVID, all of these happening at the same time is putting tremendous stress and strain on all of the countries in the Caribbean, and those of us who are very vulnerable. And we are vulnerable. We are vulnerable from a climate standpoint. We were, thank God, that we were not hit by that Category 5 hurricane that was heading our way and just stayed north and stayed away from us. Had that hit us, it would have set us back. It would have certainly affected a certain percentage of the GDP, and it would have set us back. But we were able to escape it, and we must count that as a blessing. But those are the type of threats we'll be dealing with every year. Every single year, we will be dealing with the threat of a Category 5 hurricane. And if we were to be hit by one of those hurricanes, or two of them in the same season, or consecutive season, that can wipe out sometimes over 100% of GDP. I want our people to hear this. And because we're in a polycrisis situation with a new war, increasing fuel costs internationally, the government, the administration, we have taken the decision to protect our people as much as possible. We are subsidizing the very gas you put into your vehicle. We are subsidizing the gas, the LPG gas, the tanker gas that people buy to use in the house. We are subsidizing that. We have taken a hit on what we collect for food in terms of freight. We have decreased that in an attempt to control imported inflation. We are subsidizing electricity in the homes of our people. We still are subsidizing water in the homes of our people. We are subsidizing, we have made sure that we have injected more money into the subvention for preschools so parents can have an ease. We are investing more in college by making college free, more in university by cutting interest rates at the banks and paying economic costs for all of our students who go to the University of the West Indies. On top of that, we are still doing the PAP, which we, at present time, we are doing the Elevate program. We are also looking at the STEP. So we are doing about, it can easily be $250 million in support, direct support to our people here in St. Kitts and Nevis to protect them from the very precarious situation in the world at this time when it comes to the economies. We are protecting our people. And I want our people to know that. We did the Independence 40 reset because it was our estimation that our people had worked hard to establish an independence, and therefore I think a grateful nation should in a tangible way show its appreciation to its people. However, I would say that it cost a lot. But to give people a fair chance to be reconnected with electricity, water, to have reduced costs and construction materials so that they can build a home, and to give the workers of this country um, some tangible support, um, we thought that that would give our people a reset for one, their contribution, of course, but coming out of the post-COVID, and we are looking at 2024 as our year of full recovery, that they can start that period on a positive footing. And therefore, we are saying that in a great sense, because we have done that and that cost us a lot, but it's worth the investment, we as a people have to now be clear as to where we want to go. And understanding all these polycrises, the government would have to make decisions to make sure that we continue to protect St. Kitts and Nevis. Some of the decisions would have to be tough decisions, but those decisions would have to be decisions to protect our people as much as possible. And so we are dealing with a different reality from just a couple of weeks ago with a whole new war. And already we see the gas prices increasing, which will affect everything. And we have to do more to protect our people, which we are doing presently. And so I wanted to bring that message. So I also wanted to discuss the sustainable island state. Why are we seeking to create a sustainable island state? Because as I stated before, we are dealing with an existential threat. Existential threat means our very existence. Because the temperature of the world is increasing, which has led to a number of things which I'll go into shortly, but let me say first, that is leading to stronger hurricanes, which means it can destroy our country. We have to deal with it. And one of the ways in which we want to deal with it is to build resiliency, and to adapt. And we have to do this maturely. Hence the theme for Independence 40. It is important. Resiliency and sustainability. We have to do it, and we have to do it maturely. Maturely means we have to make the right decisions to make sure that we can build the resilience and the sustainability and also adaptation. Very critical things. So while the climate is changing, we have to do our part to make sure that we protect ourselves. Hence the idea of a sustainable island state. This means that we have to make critical changes. One, the reason why we don't have water is because, apart from the man-made input, is the drought, prolonged drought. Water, rainfall continues to decrease significantly year after year. Right now we are 40% down from last year, which was a percentage down from the year before, which was a percentage down from the year before. So we are on a downward trajectory in terms of rainfall. Hence, to protect our people and to be able to deliver potable water, we have to invest in extra drilling. That costs money. We have to now expand the desal plant at Marriott to deliver more water for our people. And we have to invest in our own desal plant and continue the drilling for water. That alone is going to cost tens of millions of dollars so that we can have water security here in St. Kitts and Nevis. And part of a sustainable island state is that our people have access to 24/7 water. Because after air, water is the next most important vital thing. So that is part of the sustainable island state, making water available with the climate change. So we are becoming more resilient by what we want to do to make sure that even though the climate is changing and affecting rainfall, we are looking for other ways to deliver water to our people, which I just pointed out. So we have to adapt. The resilience, and it has to be sustainable as well. How will we sustain this? We want to introduce renewable energy, and that would help to power these desal plant. We want to drill for water, which can produce water for over a long period of time. But part of the matter is, for us to be able to sustain it, our people has to be more responsible with water. All of us have to be more responsible. And so we have to conserve water. Don't wash vehicles with an open hose, but a bucket of water. Don't shower and be in the shower brushing your teeth at the same time. Don't be brushing your teeth and have the water running. Don't be using a running water just to wash your dishes. That is sustainable. Conserve water as much as possible, and the extra long baths, you will have to cut them out as well. Because water now is becoming a scarce commodity because of climate change. And if we are to adapt, we have to both do what we are doing in terms of the infrastructure, but we also have to take personal responsibility at the family level, at the community level, and nationwide to make sure we conserve this very, very important resource, the resource of water. So I just want to tell people, man, control how you use the water. Treat it special. Don't waste it, right? Because of that. Now, the other one that we're looking at, another pillar, energy. We see what is happening. How can we become a sustainable island state? The high cost of energy that we are dealing with. When the oil price go up, it affect everything in the country. That is unsustainable. We are subsidizing it to the tune of almost $100 million a year. That is unsustainable. It cannot be kept up. Nobody can keep up that. So what we are seeking to do from the national level is to switch to renewable energy, which is cheaper. And of course, it does not respond to the fluctuation of oil prices and the international market. So if there's a war in Europe, it wouldn't affect our energy costs as it is right now. And we don't know to the extent that that would affect us. So the energy cost is a serious issue. And so we can do it by switching to renewable energy, whether it be solar, geothermal, and so forth, so that we can manage the cost, and the cost will come down significantly. What does that mean? You can have cheaper electricity. And that is the point. And if electricity is cheaper, a lot of other things are going to be cheaper. And in that, can we convert to electric vehicles? So you don't need gas vehicles to run. And that will take some time, but that is part of the adaptation, building resilience, and it has to be sustainable. So how can we maintain that? We can maintain that by, of course, curbing how we treat energy. So while we are investing in geothermal and we are investing in solar energy to carry down the cost over the medium term, our people, all of us, including me, we have a responsibility to conserve as much energy as we can, because the energy is subsidized. So the electricity bill you get is a subsidized bill. It's not the real cost. If you were to get the real cost, trust me, you would not want to see the real cost. But we are protecting our people. We want our people to be responsible. So I'm asking our people to conserve energy. If you're in a room and you're not using the light, turn the light off. Try not to iron one piece of clothes every day. What if you do it in bulk? It helps. The other matter that you can do is all these things you have plugged in to charge your phone and so forth. Once you're finished, you plug them out and don't leave them in beyond after being charged. If we are to do these simple things, turning off the lights, pulling out this, not using a light when we don't need it, not ironing excessively, and so forth. These little changes, imagine each home doing those things to save energy. That will have a tremendous impact nationally. And so I'm asking our people to look for ways in which they can save energy, in which we can save energy, so that we can, one, carry down our electricity bill, but apart from that, carry down the cost that the country has to bear to subsidize the electricity. And in doing that, we are saving our planet as well, because this is fossil fuel that we are using. And even if we were to turn over, I still would ask people to please conserve as much energy. So in creating a sustainable island state, it means delivering to the people at the ground level, water to the people, energy to the people, and then there's food security. And that is why the minister is talking about 25 by 25. Very, very critical. And we are developing some relationships, because our farmers here, those who are in this space, there has to be, of course, more communication, continued communication. And there is a university, Southern University of the United States, that wants to come. They want to come in and help us with our agricultural development. And there are those who want to invest in the space, because we cannot continue to import food at such high cost from North America. Because I went, for example, I got the cost from the supermarket. I asked the supermarket proprietor to send me the cost, let's say, of milk. He sent me the cost of carnation milk. And then he sent me the cost of Bonnie milk. And the Bonnie milk is about half the cost of the carnation milk. And I said, so why the cost? He said, well, carnation milk he import from wherever, and wherever he imports it from, the price have gone up significantly. However, the Bonnie milk that he has, the price has not gone up significantly. And that is a case of imported inflation. You can't carry down the cost of a carnation milk. That is the cost because they bought it at a higher cost from wherever they get it from the manufacturer. However, they have an alternative that is much cheaper than the carnation milk. So we can't do much to carry down the cost of the carnation milk because that is what you call imported inflation. They carry up the cost. The cost that you buy from the manufacturer is elevated, is higher, and therefore that would affect us as well. And that has affected a number of food items. However, there are some alternatives that come from different regions that have, good quality, may not be the same brand, but are much cheaper nonetheless. But I brought that point to show that there is imported inflation. And so that in itself we have no control over to deal with. It's just the cost from the manufacturer. And so that we are seeking to develop the sustainable island state. And so with the sustainability goals, what they call the SDGs, there are a number of them, 17 of them, and each one is basically dealing with how we can lead towards developing a sustainable island state. We have 7 pillars that I spoke about when I spoke at the consultation that I can go into, and over the time we will start a massive campaign and discussing it more. But what I want people to understand is that the sustainable island state model gives us the best opportunity to survive as a country. It addresses issues of climate change. It addresses issues of how we live as a people. It addresses the issues that we deal with on a daily basis, from healthcare, education, jobs, the economy, food, water, energy, and our relationships with each other. All of that has to be premised on good governance. Without good governance, the chances of achieving this would be much, much less. And therefore, that is how we have sought to deal with the issues, the polycrisis. And the polycrisis is affecting us more as a new war has now developed over in the Middle East. And I'm asking our people to really join in helping to establish the sustainable island state. But let's start by conservation, which means conservation of water, of energy. Let's start by producing less waste. Let's start by being very innovative and finding our own local solutions to deal with the changes that are happening around us. These changes are not going to stop. They are going to multiply. They're going to become more acute because of where the world is heading now. The world is heading to a point where the existence of the Caribbean as a viable region is at threat, is at serious risk. I want us to understand that we are at serious, serious risk. The climate change and all of the negatives that we have been speaking about for decades is here. That is here. It is not going anywhere. The reality will change. And therefore, we must adapt. We have to change with it. We have to become resilient. And whatever we do, it must be sustainable. Otherwise, our very existence is under serious threat. But we must fight back. We must fight back to protect us. And anybody who says otherwise, they would be fooling you. Frankly, they would not be telling you the truth or the reality with what we are dealing with presently here in the Caribbean region and in St. Kitts and Nevis. So, Jimmy, you're going to have, I know we have until 3, and I'll give you an opportunity to ask some questions. I wanted to address something that I see out there. People, I make myself very available through press conferences, through my round table. The round table is where I sit with the press, and they come and they ask whatever the question. Because I sit and I respond, there had been some talk out there about whether or not I'm screening questions. I don't screen questions. I come on Freedom and we open up the line. I was on Win FM, they open up the line. People ask what they want, and they should have the opportunity to ask what they want. The press asks what it wants. And therefore, I want to dispel any notion out there that there's any screening of any question. I talk to the international press, regional press, and generally I make myself available. So I want to say to our people that those type of things that are going around, they have no basis in reality. That is what I call propaganda and trying to give a reality that does not exist. Of course, people would always have an opportunity to say what they want to say, but people must be responsible and try not to deliberately mislead people with obvious, what we say in colloquial terms, lies. How can persons say that when the media is invited and they are invited to ask what question they want to ask? And so, therefore, I want to dispel that notion about we are screening what the press can ask and so forth. The round table, I think, is a very innovative way of having a conversation with the press. We sit with dialogue instead of asking a question at a press conference and you give an answer. That is one way, and we're going to have another press conference, of course, but it gives the opportunity to sit and dialogue on very critical and important issues. These are very critical and important issues where a press conference answer may not bring out everything, but a round table allow for a dialogue to delve deeper into a number of matters. And so therefore I want to say clearly that that is definitely not so on our local level. The press has access, and I give access so that we can have discussion. Jimmy, the last round table I did is after each time I travel and come back, I seek to have a discussion with the press. Before I travel, I tell the people that I'm traveling, and after I travel, I basically use the opportunity to give an update on the travel. So recently, as you know, I traveled to the United Nations, where I made a presentation to the United Nations. I also I also participated in a number of independence activities with our people. For example, I was in Canada for one such activity. Then I was in Washington for one of those activities, and I also was in the United States for another activity. And I'm hoping now to travel to the United States as part of our 40th anniversary. And so I have decided that our diaspora must be an active part of that as well. We cannot just communicate with the diaspora and meet with the diaspora only when it's close to the election. And I said before the elections that I will not practice that. We have set up a secretariat to deal specifically with the diaspora. Why? One, these are our citizens, and they should be given the opportunity, even though they are not living in St. Kitts and Nevis, to participate in the advancement of St. Kitts and Nevis. There are a lot of resources in our diaspora. It is not always financial resource, but it can also be in expertise, personnel. They can contribute that to the development of St. Kitts and Nevis. We want to keep them engaged, keep them involved. One of the things I would say with our relationship is the new dialysis, well, the dialysis machines that we got at the hospital, those came through Mr. Leo Estridge from Canada, who is a dialysis technician and who worked with a team to bring those to St. Kitts and Nevis. And when I hear people seeking to criticize them, I say, wow, that is below the pale. But that was that of course, that was a program or development between us and our nationals who live abroad. The other one was through Dr. Amory. Dr. Amory donated colonoscopes and endoscopes. The endoscopes and the colonoscopes, the colonoscope is for colonoscopy and the endoscope is for EGD, where they push the camera down your throat. And the colonoscope is where they put it through the anus to see your bowels and so forth. And he has donated 3 pieces, and that is helping tremendously. And that is somebody in the diaspora who is contributing significantly to the development. I met with Dr. Laws, cardiologist, who is brother to both Dr. Laws who are here. And he's a cardiologist and is now helping us to get our cardiology services up to international standard, to advance them. That is someone in diaspora who's contributing. And we have a lot of people. Each time I go to a meeting, people want to contribute. And we set up the secretariat so that we can streamline it and give them the opportunity to contribute to the development of their country, the country of St. Kitts and Nevis. And therefore, just this morning at my office, a diaspora group, I think is LOFA, who donated 2 laptops to two students here in the Federation, one from the Nevis Sixth Form College and one from CFBC. And I presented those laptops today. And those are the type of collaboration that we want to continue to have so that our people in the diaspora can participate in the advancement of St. Kitts and Nevis. And so when I look at the overall picture, I can say that in establishing the sustainable island state, bringing that vision to the people, having the input of our people, taking it back to our people, it is creating a state where we can continue to exist and exist well as St. Kitts and Nevis, based on the poly crisis that I'm speaking about. And so I'll take more opportunities to talk to our people about the poly crisis and what we have to do to ensure that we don't succumb to the poly crisis or the poly crises that are now taking place in the world, so that we can have the best opportunity to exist. Are there challenges? Of course there are challenges. Every country has its own challenges. The region has its own challenges. And so we have to face those challenges as a country to overcome them. And so we can only do that, as I said yesterday in the consultation, that what is bad for the hive cannot be good for the bees. So if persons are not interested in nation building, affecting the nation negatively would impact you positively, maybe for a short time, but you too would succumb. What is bad for the hive cannot be good for the bees. And if we understand that, then it means, therefore, that all of us should work to put St. Kitts and Nevis in the best position so that we can deal with the poly crisis, the scourge of climate change, the scourge of inflation, the scourge of oil prices, food prices, and so forth that are taking place presently around the world. And with that, Jamie, I want to thank you for giving me the opportunity to touch on these critical matters. And so you can open or you can ask your own questions.
Okay, I have
Good.
a few questions to ask.
Yes.
You mentioned a lot in your opening statement. I am happy that you addressed the issue of freedom of
Yes.
the press.
Yes.
I think where those concerns came from was your last roundtable, and people were not satisfied with the questions that the
I can't
press
say people,
put.
I would say some people.
Okay, some people,
Yes.
generally speaking,
Yes.
some people were not quite satisfied with the questions that the press chose to ask you. Now, one of the issues that people felt the press should have asked about is that about the recall of Her Excellency Nerys Dockery. Now, the government, through the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, recently advised that the ambassador had been recalled. That statement did indicate that further information will be forthcoming. This has been a major talking point. Are you in a position to provide that additional information at this point?
Right. Let me say, Jamie, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs has put out its statement. I think the statement had been recalled for consultations.
Yes.
And therefore, one would understand that there's a process in all of this. And we should not seek to thwart the process. Because every matter, part of it is one, natural justice in whatever it is. And secondly, everybody, due process is critically important. And so when one is recalled for consultations, for whatever the consultations are, one way or the other, after those consultations and a decision is made, then Foreign Affairs said they will communicate, and we should allow the process to take its place. Let me tell you, I have come to recognize and respect that. For example, with the Development Bank, you know, people were pressuring me.
Because
and
people want
wanted
the
to know-
information
they want
right
to know.
away.
Yeah, they say, give me it, give me it. And I don't blame people for wanting the information. However, I have to be very mindful that I have to make sure that people's rights are respected, that due process is carried out, and that natural justice is at the foundation of all of this. So even though I understand that people would want it, I have to also bear in mind that these principles that we have of good governance and so forth, they must also be respected. Because if one found him or herself in a particular situation, irrespective of everything else, you will want one fundamental thing, natural justice. And part of that is due process. So even though that the report from the Development Bank might speak of political opponents, I am not driven by that. I still would want that on principles that there should be due process, good governance, and people should be respected under our constitution as far as possible. So
Okay.
you apply to that, and it applies to this.
Okay.
So I'm not picking and choosing. Yeah. Okay.
One more question in regards to that. Now, this week there have been rumors that the ambassador is back in her post at the UN. Can you comment on that?
Right. So basically, I can say that the ambassador is on vacation.
Okay.
Okay, and that's where it is. So the ambassador is on vacation, and the consultations are taking place.
Okay. Now, you really went into detail to speak about the economy and where we are in terms of the outside threats. Now, the World Bank has projected a slow growth of around 2.1% for Latin America and the region for 2023 and 2024. But we do see that some countries within the region are expecting a decline. What are the projections for St. Kitts and
Well,
Nevis?
we are still positive.
Okay.
We are expecting a 4+% increase still. We have seen some positivity in the economy, which we have seen. However, we are not saying that we are immune to that. But based on where we are at, up to yesterday when the FS spoke, and if you were to check, we are still expecting a positive increase. However, with the new wars, the increase in gas prices and oil and so forth, let's see what would happen in the last quarter. But I can say in the last quarter, we are expecting tourism to increase. And I don't think that what is happening would affect tourism, because it means if less people going that way, very likely they will come this way. Right? So we don't see that being affected. The other thing is construction. We are now have started to pick up our construction. We have at least a few hundred houses that we're going to build. We have major projects in the pipeline, such as the St. Peter's Main Road, finishing the St. Peter's Clinic. We also have the new hospital, which is to start next year. We're also building the desal plant, renewable energy, the Bastille High School. So we have a number of projects, and these are just government investment. I have not spoken about the private investment as yet, because if you know me, I don't speak to things unless I'm 100% sure.
Yes.
When I'm sure, I will say it. So even though sometimes I'm asked and asked, if I'm not sure, I'm not going to confirm. I will only confirm those things. And thus far, I have confirmed a lot of things. So construction is going to pick up. Tourism is going to pick up. The agriculture is going to also pick up. And when these three large sectors pick up, financial services will also pick up. When these sectors start to pick up, and the consultation, the numbers were presented, we expect a growth up to this point, and we have been growing up to this point. However, we will see what happened in the last quarter to see how far this war will go, to see how that would affect inflation, to see we are expecting a drop in the rate of inflation for next year, 2.5%. We don't know how that will be affected, because if this affects inflation significantly, it can go up and it can affect the economy. And that is why I've been saying that there's a poly crisis, and we are looking at it closely, because we might have to make tough decisions to make sure that we protect the country as much as possible. So with that, we are expecting something positive still. We are on the trajectory for that. We are seeing that we can recover fully in 2024, which we had predicted, and we are on the pathway. Our debt to GDP ratio came down to the lowest ever in this year, the lowest ever, the debt to GDP ratio. So we have done well in terms of managing our debt, while we were able to give a lot of social support. However, based on where things are heading, we are seeing how we might have to make adjustments, because those decisions were based on the fact that we expect a growth in the economy, which we had already seen in the first quarter. We had already experienced surpluses in the first quarter. And so those decisions were made based on that. However, all of a sudden you have a new phenomenon, which is a new war in the Middle East, and we are seeing how that is going to affect us. And so decisions will be made based on where we see that go. But based on where we are at, from the consultation, it is clear that we are still expecting economic growth. But if the world's growth go into negative, we cannot assume that we will not be affected because we are part of the world.
Okay, Prime Minister, still on the economy. Now, the IMF has really been warning countries with CBI programs to lower the
Reliance.
reliance on these programs. Now, you did mention a number of subsidies that the government has in place to assist its nationals. Now, the IMF does not look kindly towards these subsidies as well. So, how do you, as the leader of the country, balance both
Right. So
scenarios?
what I look at, based on where our economy and the surpluses we were having, if you look at what we did, we sought to see how we could ease the burden of our people. And I'm glad you brought up that question, because I want people to know that when I act to help the people and protect the people, sometimes you might have a different advice from outside. So it means I'm determined to help, or we are determined to help our people. But we look at the economy and the growth that we were going and the savings that we were able to have in terms of dealing with some of these things. Of course, these are not things you're going to do all the time. Like the independence reset is once in a decade
40
thing. Well,
years.
once in 40 years. The first time it has been done. You know, no other country in the Caribbean did it. It has never been done before. So I know that it was a bold thing to do. But listening to the cries of the people and where the people were at, objectively, you know, people can make noise, but objectively they may not be there. But listening to the people and objectively looking at, we decide, let's give the people a reset. So once the economy is recovering, they will be in a better position to enjoy the recovery. Because I know what happened to some people. They went back to work, but then they had a very high electricity bill and lost their electricity and couldn't put it on. So each time they work, they're trying to pay down this impossible bill for the short term. It will take a longer term. And if they have to wait until the end of that to get, they're not going to have electricity for probably a few years. And you had a lot of people who were going into that situation. And we knew that tourism had only come back about 50% to 60% because of the late opening, and that affected everything else, as it's one of our main industries here in St. Kitts and Nevis. And so we look at all of that. However, the advice is very sound. So what we are looking at now, that is why we want to create a sustainable island state. If we are able to, for example, shift to renewable energy and don't have to subsidize fossil fuel, that will save the government hundreds of millions of dollars, which means less reliance on the CBI. Just by doing that, by expanding our tourism, which we are doing, less reliance on CBI, by upscaling our agriculture, at least to cut down on importation costs and import inflation, that can help to save the government significant amount of money. And what we are saying for those persons who are on this step and those who are with private business, we're asking the private business that you have been helped significantly. What if you were to pay part of the salary now that your business is up and running? That will help significantly to cut the burden when it comes to this step. The other thing that we can look at, of course, the other social programs, the IMF is asking us to streamline them. We have now the minister brought to the cabinet by way of update that they have now brought in an international organization to help us to study them and to streamline them, because we understand that they cannot continue on that particular trajectory. But we have to expand the different sectors so that we can wean ourselves off in order to make sure that we have a sustainable island state. The sustainability, that is unsustainable. So we have to create a sustainable scenario for our people by expanding existing industry, by becoming more efficient. That is why we want to become more technologically advanced, laying the fiber cable, so that in itself can be savings, and to create an atmosphere of good governance, because good governance in itself leads to the increase in the GDP. If nothing else happens, that increase. So if you do technology and good governance alone, you'll increase a few percentages points in your GDP alone. And therefore that can help to wean us off the CBI. So this year we did spend, and I said that frankly to the people, we did the reset. I think we draw a line in the sand and say, okay, draw a line in the sand and give our people a reset. However, we understand that that cannot be something that you do all the time. So I want our people to appreciate how we had to go out on a limb to make sure that we do this. However, not putting the country in any dangerous situation, but it gives us an opportunity to build going forward as we look for the recovery in 2024. So based on that, I take the advice very seriously. We take the advice very seriously. Um, However, we are doing all we can to make sure that we develop what you call a sustainable island state. And part of that is that we do not depend too heavily on any one sector, whether it's tourism, agriculture, CBI, that they're all part of a mix of a diversified economy. And that is where we are pushing for. So when you say pushing the orange economy, because that is an aspect of the economy, tourism, sports, creative arts, have our people traveling, making money, putting out music. These our people participating in the sports, advancing themselves. Whatever the creative economy is, new ideas, new innovative ideas to help to build a St. Kitts and Nevis. That is why we have decided that. And we're going to launch the small business office, which is a modern office, on Monday to show people the modernness of how we are going to deal with small businesses going forward. So it will be launched on Monday. And so what I'm saying with all of that, and you ask a poignant question, is that we have to now look to expand industries and look also to introduce new industries and to cut spending where we can, especially when it comes to energy. That will save us a significant amount of money. And once we are able to make significant savings, we will be able also to wean ourselves off of the heavy reliance of the CBI. So two aspects: expand the economy, sectors that are already robust, help them to be stronger, diversify the economy by introducing new sectors or new industries, and then how can we eliminate heavy spending on by shifting, for example, to renewable energy. So we have our economic outlook for the next 15 years. We have already put the plan together, and of course, part of it, one of the fundamental part of it, is to cut down on the heavy reliance on any one sector, whether it's tourism, CBI, any other sector that can come in. We want to reinvest in our manufacturing sector, which had seen some decline, especially during the COVID years, so that again can add to the mix of what we are seeking to achieve. But I would say this is challenging, as you can see, but it is doable because we now have a framework to do it. So we are not shooting in the dark. So anybody who comes to St. Kitts and Nevis will be able to see a clear vision of how we are charting the course forward to become a sustainable island state, which involves all of the things that I've spoken about and even what you have asked about. But all of this will have to be premised on good governance.
Okay, the Prime Minister, time is short, and I did have another question, but I want to give the callers the opportunity to interact with you because some people are already calling in.
Okay.
So instead of taking a break and running ads at this point in time, I'm going to open the lines. The numbers to call in to speak to the Prime Minister are 662-1065, 465-6474 or 465-0546, and we will take this call. Good afternoon. You're live on Issues.
Good afternoon, Jamie. And good afternoon, Honorable Prime Minister. Couple of questions.
Good afternoon, Mr. Brown.
Yes, Honorable Prime Minister. Number one question. We in the public are of the view if the government, because this question have been asked by several governments, they all agree, but nobody making no move. For us to have constituency councils, because your ministers and your people are so busy that we in the constituencies don't get enough time to see our rep, right? Whether government or opposition. So we are requesting that we have constituency councils in our constituencies that will hear our concerns and cries and at times invite members of the opposition and members of government to come and hear our cries, our concerns, our suggestions and ideas. Number two, We are now celebrating 40 years of independence. Mr. Prime Minister, you have said, and we have been crying under several governments for us to move to a republic. And not only that, moving to a republic, not with this constitution. We would like the constitution to change. And the last question is that we want to set a retirement date for politicians at age 60. You all have set a date for us at age 55, where you want to set a retirement date for politicians at age 60.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much, Mr. Brown. Going straight back to the phone lines. Good afternoon. You are live on Issues.
Hello, this is Major Jones.
Good afternoon, Major Jones.
Good afternoon, Mr. Prime Minister.
Major
Just
Jones,
a little two questions, that's common. Two questions I want to ask you.
Yes.
I always say, I don't know if you ever heard about a proverb that said, don't rush the brush and throw away the paint. You ever hear that?
Yes.
Okay, well, okay. What I want to find out, now the problem, I didn't get it clearly, as regards to the ambassador. Are you saying to me that she's on holidays, and after the holidays, the matter will come back, return?
Right. No, what I'm saying is that there is, remember the call was for consultations, and that matter can be resolved before her vacation is up or after her vacation is up, but the decision all will be made after you have the consultation. So it is premised not on the holidays, but on the consultations.
Okay.
All
Okay,
right?
thank you very much.
You are welcome,
Okay,
sir.
thank you so
And Major
much.
Jones is, of course, a man from the military, so he understands processes.
Yes. Let's go back to the phone lines. Good afternoon. You are live. We missed that call, but let's take this one. Good afternoon. You are live on Issues.
Good afternoon, Jeremy.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Mr. Prime
We're
Minister.
going to try
Two
to
things
keep the
quickly.
call quick this afternoon, okay? Journey?
Jeremy, yes. Good afternoon,
Okay.
Mr. Prime Minister.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon.
Yeah, two things
Yes.
quickly. Now, we have just had the passage of Philip, I think, and, we had a little rain and all that. And in my constituency, which is constituency number 4, we have Bloody Point Gut. Now, we hear the talk about dengue fever. Can you say if we can have the Ministry of Health go around to fumigate with the mosquitoes, because there's a lot of mosquito that is on the rise right now. And also, can you say quickly to the general public that are listening, where are we on the consideration to the minimum wage? Thank you. Those are my two.
Okay, thank you, Journey. Nice
answer,
and
yeah.
nice and quick. Let's go back to the phone lines and take this call. Then we'll allow the Prime Minister
Yes.
to respond to the callers. Good afternoon. You are live on Issues.
Yes, good afternoon, Jamie. Good afternoon, Prime Minister.
Good afternoon.
Thank you for your continuing work to enhance the welfare of the people of St. Kitts and Nevis. I just want to make one comment on the aspect of tourism and its continued contribution to economy. You made reference to the fact that last year, because there was a late opening after COVID, that we did not do as we could have done. And I'm thinking that, this is just my personal view,
Yeah.
that is past tense.
Yes.
In my view, the government of the day did a very good job in keeping the country safe. It may have opened a little later than it could have, it ought to have done, and we might have suffered a little bit for that. But as you have indicated, we are rebounding. But so we have to look at the future. And you made the point that with the current situation in the Middle East, we could be affected. You have indicated in a positive way. It could be negative in terms of oil prices, but also positive in the sense of persons coming here, increasing our tourism arrivals. But there's another big aspect that we have to look at. Because so much hatred is being engendered, and we can see it every day on the TV with this, we have to look at the issue of security. Because we might get increased arrivals here, we might be seen as a soft target, and I can see that could end up affecting negatively the tourism situation and, in fact, our economy. So I am just saying we have to be mindful. But thank you very much.
Yeah,
Thank you
that's
so
a,
much
that's a
for
very,
that contribution.
Yes, that caller who called, the last caller, sounded like Mrs. Leiber. That is
Yes.
a very critical point that she hit on, a soft target. And I would like to, I met with the National Security Advisor this morning, and I also had a conversation, and I'm going to reveal the information at the right time, that we are going to put in place a security personnel to surveil for St. Kitts and Nevis our threats, and when it comes to our CBI program, to protect it more, to protect our country more. We are going to do that. I would make the announcement in short order because we are looking at this. We cannot think that we are not a soft target. I mean, we have issues of dealing with crime here, which the police, I think, has been working tirelessly hard, but we understand that that's a different level. What we are talking about here is a level of having an attack that can affect our opportunity to continue to grow and advance, and it can weaken us. So I want to thank the caller for that. And yes, caller, we are touching it. So I would say within a few more weeks, definitely before Christmas, I will make an announcement as to our security internationally and what we are doing to make steps to help in that way.
Okay,
so I want to thank
fantastic.
the caller for that.
So, Prime Minister, we had a number of
Yes,
calls.
so I would answer. I'll finish off with the caller. The caller made a good point about our country being safe and so forth. What I would like to say is that I'm a medical doctor, and I am driven by numbers and science, the scientific position. When we opened up the country last year, August 7th, the data showed we could have opened up since May. Scientifically speaking, I don't want this to be lost in the discussion because it would have been very responsible scientifically to open the country in May. It would have been very responsible economically to open the country since May. But the most important thing would be lives. And the science suggests that it was safe to do so. And that is where my criticism comes in. The country should have been open since May 2022, which would have helped us significantly for the season of 2020. As a matter of fact, we had the slowest growth because we opened up so late in terms of removing all the restrictions. And that is still affecting us today. And she made the point that we should look forward. And that is why, even though we know that that affected us, and it's still affecting us, I don't want us to not think it's not affecting us, because it is. Our recovery still will be one of the slowest in the region because of that late decision. Some decisions can have short-term impact, some can have medium-term impact, and some can have long-term impact. This one is at least having presently a medium-term. He had a short-term impact, and it will have a medium-term impact on us. And so it's not really looking back, it's dealing with the reality still of that decision. However, the point, and I take the very strong point, that we look forward. That is why we say we have to look forward. How can we increase airlift by 14%? The single largest jump maybe in a year that this country may have experienced, a significant increase. We also decided to go back out and get the ships to come back in. So we have gone from between 500 to 600,000 last year for cruise visitors to between 800,000 to 900,000 this season. So we are certainly looking ahead. And I want to thank the caller, of course, for her suggestion. But I also wanted to speak about the science and to show that we are still being affected negatively because of that decision. With respect to the passage of Philip and dengue, the Ministry of Health would have put out a notice, and we have increased the fogging. And I want to thank the caller for making that call, that he has seen an uptick in mosquitoes in that area. And after you have storms and increased rainfall, water settling, it can lead to an increase in breeding in mosquitoes and so forth. And with increased air travel and transportation and so forth, you can move diseases from one area to the next. And so we are monitoring very closely. I had the conversation with, of course, the CMO. We have increased fogging in particular areas that are high risk, and we will continue to do this. In the meantime, the Ministry of Health is putting out information so that we can take various measures. So I want to encourage people, if you have water stored outside, to please to cover it. Don't leave it uncovered. If you have old buckets and stuff outside, puncture holes into them so that the water can run off and that the water doesn't settle and create a feeding ground for mosquitoes. We encourage people to use mosquito nets, especially if you have children, and you can also use off to get the mosquito, to prevent mosquito bites and so forth. And so the Ministry of Health is on top of this, and we are working to make sure that we curtail anything else that can happen. So I want to thank him. With respect to the minimum wage, as I said, we already put the task force together, which is headed by the Honorable Sam Conda. As you know, this needs robust study, consultation, and so forth. This government, this administration, we took it upon ourselves to quickly start dealing with it, because for the last decade or so, nothing was done. And even with the difficulties of the international economy and our local economy, which is so vulnerable, we are still looking to make sure we create the best scenario for our workers. And so we'll keep that communication going. And so, yes, we are much more advanced with respect to the minimum wage matter at this particular time. So I wanted to tell Jeremy that as well. And I think the Honorable Marsha Henderson will be on this week, and she will speak to it as the Minister of Labor. Major Jones said, don't rush the brush, you might spill the paint. He is a man of philosophy, and I understand what he's saying. Thank you, Major Jones, for that. And I think I answered his question with respect to the ambassador.
Okay, so
Right. I have some more.
Okay.
Yes, Carl Brown's question.
Oh,
Yes.
yes.
Okay, so I am going up the list. He spoke about the republic and the constitutional change, and I've said over and over that it would be a decision by the people, and the people would decide their direction. In the sense that I think critical changes like those, the people should always lead on them. And I've said that internationally, regionally, and locally as well. When it comes to the issue of the retirement age, he says that politicians
The
should
age
retire
60.
at age 60. Again, the people would have to determine if that is one of the ways that they want to go. I can say to Carl that in my own opinion, that's me personally, that I vow, and I said I will say it over and over again, that I'm here to give 2 terms, and that would be my contribution. Being the leader of a country is very challenging. It's a lot of work, especially if you want to do the right thing. It calls for a lot. It draws on all of your talents, your skill, your energy, and so forth. And so, but it can be very rewarding as well, because it can actually help you move your country from one level to the next, especially in this time with this poly crisis. I really want to lead with the team, the cabinet team, a wonderful team of getting, with the people, of course, of getting us to a sustainable island state, which gives us the best opportunity of survival. Carl spoke about community councils. What he's speaking to is that to have government more on the local level. We have put in place what you call the Community Empowerment Office, because we believe, as he does, that the government really should be at the ground level. He spoke to the fact that sometimes ministers of government and being parliamentary rep have to travel, run a country, do many different things. You may not have as much time. So how can the people access the government still, even if you have someone in office who may not have as much time, which because of the demands of the office. I still go to my office to see people as much as possible, but the point is taken, and there has to be a mechanism. So we are seeking through the empowerment office how we can get the government down to the level of the people. There's more work to be done, I agree, to bring the government closer to the people and the people closer to the government. Not the administration in a sense, but the mechanisms of government, so that there can be easier, what I would call flow of information, a relationship that allows both to function very closely to each other, which should be. So I take that point, and we are seeking to do that through the empowerment office as well. He spoke about, right, so I think I have answered those questions. Yes, I have written them down, and those are the ones that were asked, and I've answered those. Yes.
Okay, so Prime Minister, it's 5 minutes past the hour of 3. I know you are a busy man. There are some calls coming in.
Because
So
I came a
would you-
little early and you had somebody else here.
Yes, yes,
Because my
yes.
time is my
Yes,
time is
I
tight.
take responsibility for that.
I know.
Would you like to provide your closing remarks now, or would you
Yeah.
like to?
Because what happened is that I have my schedule set.
I understand. So let's take
So,
the closing remarks
Yes,
now.
and then I will give
And
the
you're
opportunity.
often here,
I'm
so-
often here,
Yes.
so I'll come back again. So, Jamie, I want to thank you and Freedom once again for giving me this opportunity, and I will come as often as I can. As I said before the elections, I will not stop coming. Even though I have the formality of going on a government's press conference or the round table, these formal settings, I still want to come to Freedom where a man who going to catch a bus will say, boy, let me call in Freedom and ask the Prime Minister a question. I want to still have a sense of seriousness, but one that is not so formal.
Being able to read those grassroots
Those
people.
grassroots people
Yeah.
who have the phone in the pocket and want to call to ask the Prime Minister a question. I still want to give those people the opportunity to reach me as the Prime Minister, because I'm here because of the people. And so I will still continue to come and allow the people to ask what they want to ask. And the only thing I ask for is respect. Nothing else. Ask what you want to ask. And if they want to disrespect me, I will not disrespect them. But respect allows for a better level of communication and the information to be shared. That's the only thing I ask for. And so I will continue to come. But in my closing statement, I want to say to our people that this administration is working tirelessly hard on your behalf. We are seeking to premise the government on a foundation of good governance. It gives us the opportunity to establish a sustainable island state, a country that can adapt, that can be resilient, and that can be sustainable, dealing with the polycrisis of wars, inflation, dealing with climate change and the threat of knocking out our existence. And so I am saying that as we deal with these crises, that we all need to be really on the same footing in order to have the best opportunity for St. Kitts and Nevis to continue to thrive even under these very difficult circumstances. We gave you the people a reset, something that had never been done and something that has never been done in this country before, and I'm sure it has not been done throughout the hemisphere. It was bold. It was a step that we thought was necessary to give our people a chance as the economy recovers. Now we were in economic growth and we continue to grow. With the new threat that we are facing with a war in the Middle East, we are going to see how that would affect us. We'll have to make tough decisions, and when tough decisions are to be made, we will make them, because that is part of leadership as well. They may not always be the most popular decision, but they have to be sound decisions that protect us in the end, and those we are willing to make as well. The Independence Party reset, I know that it is a once in a lifetime, not a lifetime, but once in a while thing that we can do. But as far as we can support our people, we will do it. But I'm asking our people to also work on being more productive. We cannot build a sustainable island state without productivity, diligent work, and being innovative. The government does not have all the answers. The government cannot provide everything. Those type of countries can't survive. They can't exist. It takes the government, which is representing the people in a democratic country determine who leads, and they are expected to make good decisions to help the people and to protect the people. But the people in turn will make sure that they work hard, diligently, be innovative to make sure that they have the best opportunity to establish the best country. And we are willing to do that. So I ask the people to join us as we discuss developing a sustainable island state, because this also gives you the opportunity for a better St. Kitts and Nevis. And so it's always a pleasure for me to be here. I want to thank the people of St. Kitts and Nevis for the opportunity that you have given us as a team and you have given me as the Prime Minister at this particular time. And I want you to know that although I'm not perfect, I am working tirelessly hard to make sure that we position St. Kitts to continue on a path of growth and to establish a state that will be an example for many. Thank you very much.